Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NNP Symposium. We are here this hour with Shanna Schmidt. And Shanna, you can go ahead and turn on your camera and audio if you would like. So Shanna Schmidt is a numismatist, and she'll be talking to us about navigating the auction market for ancient coins. So things like the different auction houses that are out there, laws that you may or may not be aware of regarding purchases, especially for ancient coins, as well as shipping overseas. So if you have any questions during the presentation, just go ahead and put them in the Q&A at the bottom, and we will get to some of those at the end. Other than that, Shanna, you may take it away.
Thank you, Leanna. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining. And before I go any further, I will say that if you have any experience already in the auction market, then my talk is probably going to be redundant and slightly boring. But if you're here and you're new to the market, then I'm very happy to have you. As Leanna said, my name is Shanna Schmidt. I'm the owner of Shanna Schmidt Numismatics, Inc. My company was established in 2016, and I sell ancient and world coins. However, I would say the biggest driving part of my business is serving as an auction representative for some of the biggest coin collectors in the US and Europe. I make my living by charging a minimal fee for each coin I purchase on behalf of customers. This is calculated based on what the coin hammers at. For example, if you buy a $1,500 coin in auction, you will pay me $75 for my representation services. So it's not based off of the total bill of what you'll pay, which would include a buyer's premium. It's based just off of the hammer. In some instances, I receive a dealer discount, but this is really just in Europe where it's legal. In the US, it's considered an unfair advantage and it's not permitted. When I do receive a discount, I don't pass on any fees to my customers. And I think that has been one of the driving things that has brought people to me to ask for my help, because in the end, if you're not paying anything for my services and you're getting the kind of service that I provide, it's a no-brainer. So you're paying exactly what you would pay as if you did the auction yourself. Since I do so much work overseas, this has created kind of a niche service that many of my customers find very useful to avoid dealing with things like exchange rates and foreign transaction fees. Today, I'm going to give you some helpful advice when and if you decide to embark on bidding in an auction for primarily ancient and world coins. Of course, this advice can be applied to any kind of auction, whether it be ancient, world, US paper money, you name it. But I will give you some very specific information for ancient coins. Oops, sorry, hold on a second. There we go. So there's my title page. So here, some of the main discussion points for today are going to be where to find the most up-to-date auction schedules. Where do you go to? Tools for researching your coins of choice and levels you might need to bid at to be successful. My most successful customers are the ones that trust the tools that are available for researching reasonable, which doesn't necessarily mean all the time inexpensive, bidding levels. No one wants to overpay, but routinely bidding too low in an auction is also a waste of everyone's time. For auction representation, I will generally take anyone's bids at the very beginning, at least. But I do recommend reasonable and realistic levels to bid to. If a customer insists on always bidding to estimate or worse, below estimate, then eventually I probably will stop working with them. The reason is simple. I know what it takes to win and what levels make sense. I do so many auctions every week, and over the course of years, you learn very quickly what works and what doesn't work. However, there are some customers that, you know, they're stubborn, in my opinion, and then they want to keep looking for that deal that they think is going to slip through the cracks. I do find that many times those people will come back to me and ask for my help once they realize that it doesn't work and they want to succeed. Sometimes a deal does slip through the cracks. That's not to say that you can't get a deal in the auctions, but you know, those deals are probably going to be, that's going to happen more for somebody like me who does this for their living. If you actually have a job, it's usually not possible. moving forward, I'm going to talk about some of the current auction houses that are out there. I'm not going to mention every auction house. So if somebody is listening from an auction company and says, oh my God, why didn't you mention my auction house? I'm just mentioning the few that that give people an idea of what's out there. I'm going to discuss auction representation, obviously, and what that actually means. And then, how we're going to get your coins that you've purchased, I would say overseas, back to you safely and securely. And then finally, I'm going to just touch on cultural property restrictions. I'm not going to go too much into it, and it's not meant to scare anyone because they're really not scary. It's really just to inform you because I believe knowledge is power. The more you know when it comes to cultural property, the less you're going to actually worry about purchasing an auction. A lot of the laws that are set up to protect cultural property, in this case coins, they've been set up several years ago where it's not really going to affect a majority of the coins that are being purchased in auction and that you're trying to bring home. Okay. So a little bit about me briefly. I've been a coin dealer and active in the auction market for about 16 years. But really, I grew up around coins. I attended my first ANA as an infant, so I've been around coins my entire life. I attend auctions both domestically, which in the US, usually that means attending it at a trade show like the ANA or the New York International. And internationally, usually I attend auctions at the auction houses, and I do this a few times a year. When I don't personally go to an auction, then I bid online. And as one might imagine, during the pandemic, my computer and I have become quite close. And it's not unusual at all for me to do sometimes 5 to 6 auctions in a single week. My focus, as everyone likely knows, is on ancients, but I also have become more and more interested in world coins and even paper money auctions. I've bid in all different kinds of auctions, from space paraphernalia, election pins, and even comics. I joined my father's firm, Harlan Burke, so Harlan J. Burke Limited, in 2005. And as everyone knows, in 2016, I left to start my own company. I actually didn't plan to become a dealer. My dream, since I can remember, was to be a concert pianist. I'm a classically trained musician. I still play. I studied part of my undergraduate degree in the music program at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and eventually switched over to get my bachelor's of science in communications. I've worked in the field of advertising as a media buyer planner and strategist for about 13 years before I came into the coin business. So it's not something that I needed to do, but something that I wanted to do. As I said, I started attending auctions in 2005, but actually my first auction that I did was in 1996. I was working overseas at the time, and my father asked a favor if I would go to Zurich and I would attend the NAC auction. So I did it because it was kind of fun and I was young, but this is definitely something I would not recommend for most people. It was trial by fire. I had no idea about anything having to do with coins or auctions, and I actually would not recommend that, but it's kind of just a fun point to mention. I think that the biggest reason is because, preparing for the auction is almost as important as the auction itself. I'm fluent in German since I'm married to a German, and I lived there for several years. And while English is spoken in a lot of the auction houses, I feel like my German has endeared me to a lot of the bigger houses and the principals that own those houses. It's just a further way to connect with people. And also, just as an aside, sometimes just knowing the language is fun and interesting, because you can kind of hear the little asides from the people that are running the auction house if they decide to switch to their mother tongue. So I find that really interesting. Okay, so where to begin? If you haven't purchased ancient coins in auction, then jumping right in without any kind of preparation, as I said before, is not advisable. This is certainly one way to ensure that the client, you, will overpay. Not understanding the market conditions or how auctions function is a bad way to start. So some ways to avoid this: learn who the players are, learn about their reputations. Do they have a reputation for being unethical? If so, maybe you want to stay away. You might talk with your fellow collectors or even trusted dealers to get a perspective before spending money in an unvetted environment. I've had many people call me to just ask me about certain auction houses. Those discussions cost nothing. I have no problem, giving people an idea of who is reputable and who is not reputable. Another way is to read a coin blog, something like Coin Talk, for example. It can be very informative and extremely helpful in navigating the auction market. This is made up of mostly collectors, and while you might not want to take some of the discussions as gospel, you generally can get a pretty good idea of the reputation and respectability of some of the companies. Another way is trade organizations like the IAPN, which stands for, I hate acronyms, by the way, the International Association of Professional Numismatists, or the BTNA, the British Trade Numismatic Association, and others. They have rigorous processes, and if your auction house of choice is a member, it shows, or rather kind of further confirms, that they subscribe to fair practices. Some other helpful hints are to decide what's your collecting area. And for beginning auction buyers, I would advise to hone in on a specific area instead of collecting too broadly. First, you have to pick a main category, of course, like Greek or Roman Republic. For me personally, when I first started collecting, I knew my budget was small. I did not have a lot of discretionary income. So I kind of gravitated towards Republican coinage. Plus, I had a colleague that was very versed in Republican coinage, and I felt like he could give me a good idea of what was good to buy and what wasn't good to buy. Once I began to make more money, I kind of gravitated towards Greek coins, which, if you look at my website, you'll see that I really do have quite a passion for Greek coins. But Republican is still very important to me. Finally, don't just buy, and I can't stress this enough, don't just buy in auctions for the sake of participating in an auction. The coin that you like might just as easily be purchased privately, and you don't have to worry about wild hammers, buyer's premium, importation hassles, or anything at all. I've had so many people come to me and I will actually persuade customers that I work with regularly now to avoid certain coins because you can buy it privately. And why do you want to spend that kind? I know I'm losing money by saying this, but in the end, I think it's better to be smart about how you buy. So let's talk about US auction houses for ancients. There's really not a lot. There's the really large ones like Heritage, which is headquartered in Dallas, and Stack's Bowers. It's actually Stack's Bowers, Ontario, where ancient coins are just a fraction of what they sell. Heritage does have weekly auctions for ancient coins. They're on the lower end of the spectrum in quality, but they're affordable and they're a great way to practice. However, they do have these large auctions like their Platinum Night that usually takes place during the course of the year, a few times, and they're aligned with major trade shows. This year, everything was, of course, completely messed up because of COVID, but this is normally how things go. For ancients, there are a lot of specialized auction houses. I guess probably at this point in time, C&G in Lancaster, Pennsylvania is probably the largest of the specialized auction houses. They hold bi-monthly electronic sales, 2 mail bid sales a year where they have a catalog, and 1 or sometimes 2 live auctions, which is called Tritoned. C&G was previously owned for several years by Victor England and Eric McFadden. And then a few years ago, they sold their company to Mike Gazvoda, who was previously a collector. C&G has kind of become, for a lot of my customers, the go-to place for purchasing for ancient coins in the US market. I'm told that they get a lot of consignments from former customers and that want to get out of the market. And most people I know say that they're fair and trustworthy. You know, you always have an occasional person who says that they're not, but I think the general consensus is they're very fair. The sales, I bid in pretty much every single one of their auctions. The sales can get very hectic. The prices can sometimes soar for certain pieces, but generally you get the feeling that it's a good auction house to work with. Another one is Ira and Larry Goldberg. We just call them Goldberg. They're in Los Angeles, California. They hold their auctions mainly as a prelude to the Long Beach trade show. Additionally, they have a joint venture called the New York Sale, which is a cooperation with Dmitry Markov, who is a Russian coin expert, M&M Washington, which is kind of an offshoot of Munson and Medallion, and Sovereign Rarities of London. Sales are held every January at the New York International. And while Goldberg does deal in other collectible areas, they do have their ancient coins. They're typically, whereas you see with C&G, a large portion of the coins that are offered are ancient, for Goldberg's, it's usually a much smaller portion. And I do see a lot of coins that, in the ancient section at least, that are kind of gravitating towards Judean coins. Another one, of course, is my father's company, Harlan J. Burke Limited, located in Chicago. When I was still working there, there was an auction component called Gemini Numismatic Auctions. And while Gemini is not defunct, they're not currently doing auctions. We used to partner when I was working there with Freeman and Sear and Herb Krindler. In recent years, Gemini, as I said, is not active. But what has remained active are the buyer bid sales that my father established in the early 1970s. It started out as a mail bid sale, and then with the 14th or so sale, I believe, it changed into the current buyer bid format, and it's continued to this time. There's always been ancient coins with some world or antiquities at time. Similar to C&G, I would say Harlan J. Burke Limited is a company that was founded for its ancient coins. And that's kind of the heart and soul of the company. Like I said, it deals in other areas, but it was founded on that principle. Moving forward, Davison's is a wonderful little outfit out of Cold Spring, Minnesota. They are a family business, as are a lot of these auction houses. There's Allen, Marnie, and then as of 2011, Leaf. Davison, they've been in business for over 40 years. They specialize in ancient Greek, Roman. They have medals and tokens of Great Britain, and they even sell some historic U.S. Coins. They hold online sales, and what is kind of a special thing is they don't charge a buyer's premium. And I should also say that for Harlan J. Burke Limited, they have changed their format a little bit, but mainly for the buyer bid, you will not pay a buyer's fee. Spink USA, another one, is an arm of the old established firm Spink & Sons. They were established in 1666. In 2007, they acquired Shreve's Philatelic Galleries. It was one of the leading philatelic auction houses in the US. And in 2008, they acquired R.M. Smythe. I'm not sure if it's Smythe or Smith. Somebody can correct me if they would like. It was the oldest auction house in New York in numismatics, and then they also sold stock and bond certificates. They're located in the US, situated in New York City, and hold regular sales in stamps, coins, banknotes, medals, bonds, autographs, maps, jewelry, you name it. And they also have one of their major sales at the New York International. If you want to talk about an expert that's kind of focus more on Indian, Islamic, Chinese, and other Asian coinage than Steve Album out of California. California is the place to go. He founded his company in 1976. They hold 3 major auctions every year in January, May, and September. And then there's smaller online auctions that are held each month. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Colby and Fanning out of Ohio, because they are one of the only auction houses, big auction houses in the US at least, that deal primarily with numismatic literature. And I've purchased a lot from them over the years. And as I said before, there's so many others that I did not mention, but these are the main ones that I work with. So now for the European auction houses for ancient, there are a lot. So this is just a small list of who's out there. Like I said, I've always gravitated towards European auctions, and collecting ancient coins is a pastime that's been long held by many Europeans. So it's not really surprising to find that the biggest auction houses for ancient coins are located in Europe. There are auction houses all over Europe, like in France, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, and I've worked with a lot of those, but the majority of ones that I work with on a regular basis are located in 3 countries, Germany, England, and Switzerland. And here are just a few and a little bit about them. First, you have Fritz Rudolf Kunker. We'll just call them Kunker. They were founded in 1971, and they grew from a one-man operation into this large conglomerate with divisions all over Germany, in Vienna, the Czech Republic, and Switzerland. I would compare Kunker to something like a Heritage in terms of their size in relation to other auction houses. They still are a lot smaller than a Heritage. They focus mainly on world and ancient coins, and they've even kind of delved into the collectible watch arena. Next, we have Numismatica Ars Classica, or as everyone knows it, NAC. NAC is headquartered in London, but they hold their auction sales in Zurich, Switzerland. They have 2 auctions a year, a fall and a spring sale. The company was founded by Roberto Russo in 1988 in Zurich. The London branch, however, opened in 2003, and since the current owners, the 2 principals, Arturo and Giuliano Russo, reside in London, their stock and their library, which is fantastic, are all located there. NAC is considered the premier auction house for ancients. They have auctions also in their Milan branch, but that focuses mainly on Italian coinage. The NAC Swiss auctions are probably the most widely attended sales in the European market, and anyone who's anyone will attend an NAC auction at some point. Nomos is located in Zurich, Switzerland as well. Originally, there was a Nomos before. It was founded near Lucerne, Switzerland in 1972 by Dr. Roland Mali. He ran that until his death in 2005. After his death, his collection was sold in Zurich, but the firm itself and the photo file that they possess, which is important from a dealer perspective, was acquired by the collector, Dr. Arnold Peter Weiss. He decided to continue the business, and they recreated the firm. They recreated the firm's price list that Dr. Mali was responsible for in late 2007. In 2009, they acquired office space, and they opened officially. They have 2 live sales a year. Usually it is abutted up next to the NAC auctions, because when the Americans and the other Europeans outside of those areas come in for the auction, best to have all the Swiss auctions at once. And they also have their web sales called Obolos, which are much more frequent. Next, we have Roma Numismatics, which is located in London, and was started by Richard Beale. I believe it was about 2007 that the firm started. They've grown exponentially since then. They have 2 auctions a year, and they have several electronic auctions that take place. In fact, Roma will be having an auction next week, along with Kunker, and there's a few others as well. Next one is Gorny and Mosch. They're headquartered in Munich, Germany. They were founded as Gießener Münzhandlung by Dieter Gorny in 1970. And in 1999, Dr. Hans Christoph van Mosch joined as an additional managing director, and the company then changed their name to, this is a handful, Gorny and Mosch Münzhandlung GmbH. Let's just call them G&M. They deal in ancient coins, but they also have a large antiquities branch. They hold a few auctions every year, as well as having electronic sales. Then we have NGSA, which was founded in 1988 by Dr. Alain Baron, and they're out of Geneva, Switzerland. They hold their auctions actually every few years, so it's not every single year. And they deal in world and ancient coins, and even have started to sell US coins. Their auctions are kind of the glamorous affairs that every coin dealer at some point wants to attend. They're very fun. Then we have Gerald Hirsch, Nachfolger. Nachfolger, by the way, means successor in German, for those that don't know. They were founded in 1953. And the current owner, Dr. Francesca Bernheimer, is a niece of Gerald Hirsch, and she took over the company after his death in 1982. The family, however, has been in the arts business since 1864. They regularly hold sales in the fall and the spring. We also have Baldwin's of St. James. It's a relatively new venture. The original Baldwin's was established in 1872. Then St. James Auctions was established in 2004 as an auction division of Knightsbridge coins in the mid-1970s by Stephen Fenton. In January 2017, St. James Auction began a new venture with Baldwin's Auctions, and it was decided to merge the two names, forming the new auction company, Baldwin's of St. James. They dabble in ancient coins. They don't always have a lot to offer, but sometimes they have some very interesting coins. Their main sales are aligned with the New York International and also CoinEx, which is the coin show held every September in London, which I've attended for the last years religiously. And then we have finally Dr. Busso Pois Nachfolger, also located in Frankfurt, Germany. Originally established in 1871 under the leadership of Adolf Hess, it was known first as Adolf Hess Nachfolger, but due to the rise in anti-Semitism and the Third Reich, the business was moved to Switzerland, where a branch was opened until 1989. The name also, by the way, in 1940 was forcibly changed to Dr. Busso Pois, which was a non-Jewish name. And Pois eventually sold his company in 1967 to two young numismatists, Dieter Raab and Peter Schulten, who retained the name, obviously. Schulten left the firm back in the 1970s, and Raab died in 2015. The current owner is Christopher Raab, and Pois holds sales in the spring and the fall. And again, they also have electronic auctions. There is right now in Europe, and probably even in the United States, we could say this, there's just a major proliferation of auction houses. There's fewer bricks and mortar locations. COVID kind of created an influx of virtual sales. So it's sometimes difficult to navigate all the sales. I try to just pick and choose the correct ones to do. I don't attempt to bid in all of them. It's really not worth it. So where do you find upcoming auctions? A lot of people ask me that, and it might seem obvious to those of us that are, doing this all the time, but maybe not to beginners. The most practical way is to find them through websites called like 6bid or NumisBids. These are free services for anyone to use. They're a great way to see a snapshot in time of what's happening on the auction market. The biggest impediment for new collectors is really just deciding which auction house is reputable and worthwhile. The sheer quantity, as I said, of available auctions can create confusion. There's just so many that aren't worth people's time. And I think that's the biggest impediment, I think, that our industry has right now. This leads me to my next point, which is that monthly newsletters are a great way to familiarize yourself with a particular auction house. Most of the major auction houses do a newsletter nowadays. It's really just to promote their own sales. So, but if you feel an auction house is worthy of your time, then you should sign up, of course. You get more information on specific lots and typically a more personalized correspondence. One that I love to mention is Nomos. Dr. Alan Walker, well, I think he's a little cheeky at times. I find it very entertaining, informative. Another person that does nice letters are Alan Davison. He writes about his mail bid sales in mass emails. He's got some small anecdotes and stories that make the coins even more compelling. Moving forward, I also have a weekly newsletter that I started shortly after starting my own business. At the beginning, it was really a way for me to get customers for auction representation. But now I do it more as a service to the industry. I try to do a newsletter every week, but more recently I've skipped a week or two here or there if nothing's really going on. It's very much dependent upon the time of the year. And I also don't like to waste my customers' time. I know how irritated I get with all the emails that I get, and I don't want to clutter your inbox. So, but the one thing I can say about my newsletters is I very much try to be unbiased about the auction houses. I do not get any money. I do not get paid for writing my newsletters, although some have asked me before to mention them. I only mention somebody if I want to. And so that's the one thing that you should know about my newsletters. If you want to get an auction experience and you don't necessarily want to jump in, you can also just attend a convention like the ANA or the New York International. In addition to walking around the tables, you can go through that entire process of viewing lots to sitting in the auction and possibly bidding. The big auction houses, like I said, like Heritage, they've become almost virtually virtual sales. COVID, of course, has helped to kind of move more in that direction. That said, their bidding systems are so high tech and trustworthy that I think proxy bidding is completely fine with a company like Heritage. On the other hand, auctions like Triton, NAC, Gorney and Mosh, I would say are best attended in person or bidding live via their online platform. And we can go more into that later. You can also attend a small show. There are examples like the Long Beach Expo, which takes place 3 times a year. There's Central States, which is in Schaumburg, Illinois, or the Whitman Baltimore Expo. All of these small regional shows have a major auction that is affiliated with them. And finally, another option is just to read news sites like Coins Weekly or eSylum. Both are amazing assets to collectors and dealers alike. Coins Weekly was launched by Dr. Ursula Kampmann. She's an academic and she previously was a coin dealer over 10 years ago. Ushi, as we all know her, is a great writer. And with her staff, she's been bringing numismatic news to the masses in a great weekly format. I personally think that Ushi is a tremendous asset to the industry. You can learn a lot from Coins Weekly about the auction houses, what they have, and she does reviews of the auction houses. She's also, I believe, it's very unbiased information, and I really do like Coins Weekly. Wayne Homran is the brains behind the eZine eSylum. These are weekly emails. They're filled with news and stories about coin shows and dealers and whatnot. It's a great way to get kind of a quick update on what's going on. It comes in your weekly inbox religiously every week. I think the last time I looked was on March 7th. He had 6,617 subscribers. So a lot of people are turning to that. And I think that, again, he provides this just amazing service. Okay. This is just a little screenshot of Numis bids and what that looks like. You can see on the left-hand side here that you've got your live sales, and then on the right-hand side, they are just the e-sales. You can click on any of these links and it'll take you, show you a little bit more. I think that I've got, yeah. So here's Oreo and Calico, auction firm out of Spain. And you can see here that they have, you can go in and you can look at the coins, you can watch the lot, gives you the starting price, so on and so forth. Here's 6bid, the other place where you can look. It's pretty much similar to NumisBid, just format differently. You have all the auctions listed by row. You can do it by month. You can see what's completed. Easy to work with. And again, this is the same auction, Oreo and Calico. Looks very similar. Very little difference in information. It's just a little stylistic difference. Okay. Alternatively, you can bid directly on the site. This is just a little screenshot I did of the Obolos auction, which is the e-auction from Nomos. The one kind of disadvantage, I think, is if you're dealing with a European auction, you may actually have to get up in the middle of the night in order to bid in the auction. So you might be better off leaving, if it's an insignificant bid, you might be better off than leaving it on the book. Okay. And this is just a live view page from the Obolos auction. During a live sale, you can see here, I don't know if you can see this with my mouse, but there's the live view button and you can follow along in real time. The electronic sales are typically just a series of dings and bells to alert you that you're the high bidder. Floor sales, they may actually have an auctioneer that's visible on your screen and you can bid in real time as if you're sitting in the auction. This is just a screenshot of my, I think it's the one before last, the 167th newsletter that I've done. Like I said, I try to be informative, stick with the facts. It's my opinion, so not everything I write may be in agreement with what you think. That's why they have freedom of speech. I try to be fair and give an unbiased view of the auction houses, like I said before. And I write this for the client's sake and to help people navigate through the auction market. Moving forward, this is just a screenshot of my website. I want to show you this because at the bottom of pretty much every page, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. That's the easiest way to do that. And then here's just a little screenshot of Coins Weekly that we mentioned earlier. Great way to get historical information on coins and people in the business. And here's Wayne's, just a screenshot from the March 7th e-Asylum. Wayne gives a little introduction, and then as you go down, you'll see more information. So once you found your desired auction house, advanced preparation is really the key to success. There are two reliable resources for checking auction records going back several years. There's Coin Archives Pro and there's AC Search. Coin Archives is a repository for coin auction catalogs in the digital domain. The goal of Coin Archives is, and I've taken this from the Coin Archives site, its goal is to make entire auction catalogs, including textual lot descriptions, images, and prices realized, available to users for both academic and commercial research. When it was first launched, it was a free service in 2002 by A.J. Gatlin, who was a former employee of C&G. It was really a pioneer in the preservation of numismatic data and in the application of modern search engine technology to make this information available online. The site was really embraced by everyone. I remember it was really career changing for a lot of people. At the beginning, Coin Archives contained only auctions of ancient coins, but then they soon started to expand to include modern coinage in November 2003. And in 2009, they launched Coin Archives Pro, which is a subscription service that actually costs about $600, at least for me, cost $600 a year. And they soon followed that with a Coin Archives Pro Academic Edition, which supports nonprofit researchers. And I don't know if it's free or it's at a reduced rate. This marked the beginning of Coin Archives as a commercial venture. When they first launched the site in 2002, it only had 30,000 auction lots. Now it's in the millions. So it's just anytime, if you're looking for anything, any auction record, and you know how to deal with the search functions, you can pretty much find anything going back to around 2000. AC Search is the other, it's a newer platform. Again, same kind of thing. It contains numismatic auctions from various international auction houses. The database goes back more than 17 years. It contains pictures, descriptions, and realized prices in several currencies similar to Coin Archives. But one feature that's a little bit different is AC Search has something called an image search, which matches a coin to its auction if one exists. It's a great way to find old pedigrees, and you get a certain amount of times to use this image search. I've employed it a few times. It's great. There are also other services to find old pedigrees if you're interested in that, but I won't go too much into it. This is just a screenshot of Coin Archives Pro, what it looks like. You can see here, you have ancient coins, world coins, and they have a publications tab as well. I don't really use that. I really use the ancient and the world coins. And here's AC Search. Again, they've even got, you can see here, they've got some news, they've got highlights, and you can do your search. Works very similarly. So some more helpful hints on trying to figure out what to bid on. Again, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but is the coin that you are interested in frequently coming up in auction? Is it a common coin, like an Athenian coin or an Alexander tetradrachm or a stater from Aegina? Or is it alternatively a coin maybe like from Crete that might be harder to find? You need to ask yourself this before you pay a premium. Is it really worth buying an auction? If there is a large group of similar coins found with several different auction houses at the same time, you might also want to ask yourself at what stage in the market these coins should be placed. For example, some years ago, there was a large group, everyone noticed, of gold Irene solidi on the market. Irene is a Byzantine empress. When we first started seeing these coins come up in auction, they were going for double or triple the price that they're going for now. So just like with any other commodity, there's supply and demand, and it does play a role in what the final hammers are that are realized. Once a supposed group, we'll call it a group, is absorbed into the market, the prices do tend to drop because, people that wanted it got it. So there's just less desire for that coin. You're going to see prices rise again after several years when nothing is available, and people decide to sell their collections, and they bringing those types a little bit more sporadically into the market than at just one point in time. You also might want to look at coin grades. They are important, but remember that grading for US coins, if you're coming from that area, is far different than ancients. If you put a group of ancient coin dealers in a room and you ask them to grade the same coin, you're going to get some variation, but not as much as you might think. Some people falsely assume that the grade on an encapsulated or slabbed ancient coin is reliable. It isn't a secret. I'm not really a fan of encapsulating ancient coins. That said, I think if you use the auction house grading directionally, it's good enough. You should do that for anything. Use your own eyes to determine if the quality is what you desire. Looking at examples on Coin Archives or AC Search can give you a good impression of what that coin generally will come available as. So you can see what an EF coin is compared to a VG, but quality can be vastly judged differently based on individual customer desires. I try personally to avoid bidding on slab coins in auction because you just can't view the entire edge of a coin, and viewing conditions in a room like Heritage versus like Triton can be extremely difficult. For example, I've spoken with a lot of collectors of US coins, and they swear by viewing in dark rooms with lamps. They think that viewing US coins that way is the best way to go. And I'm not one to argue with them. But for me personally, viewing an ancient coin in the dark in a slab is one of the worst conditions for viewing an ancient coin. I'm amazed at how different a coin looks when viewing in a dark room versus a lit room. Lastly, in terms of slabbing, I just think that it's a pain, and let's face it, I think ancient coins are meant to be held. The oil from your fingers is not going to impact the state of preservation at all. In fact, I think that toning on ancient coins, if stored properly, it ages very nicely. Lastly, don't always take the pedigrees as gospel. Attributions can be inaccurate. Even the best of the best make errors, and you need to keep that in mind. It's horrible to discover after you purchased a coin in auction that the pedigree is actually not correct. It does happen. And the more you do research, the better, in my opinion. Auction houses are unlikely to take a coin back because they messed up on the pedigree. Whereas, like, if they don't disclose that something might be ex jewelry, or if there's a shave mark somewhere, or there's some kind of repair, they're more likely to take it back. Just as you want to check a pedigree, you also might find a lost pedigree. As I mentioned earlier, dealers routinely covered up pedigrees to block customers from finding out how much they paid for a coin in the past. With transparency on the internet and cultural property laws, pedigrees became a lot more important in more recent days. Some dealers like me actually try to buy pedigreed coins. I'm very much interested in the collector history of a coin, and sometimes it's just as interesting as the coin itself. There's some people like John Quincy Adams who used to collect coins. There's services like Exnumis or that AC image search that you can use to find an old pedigree. And sometimes that can increase the value of your coin exponentially. Other helpful hints. I can't stress enough that leaving bids on the book is normally a bad idea. It shouldn't be done unless you feel that auction house is 100% trustworthy. Even the best of the auction houses are going to find it tempting to take the highest bid level that they receive and put the starting price just under that level. This leaves very little chance of success for you as the buyer if a lot opens up just below your level. I'm not trying to suggest that all auction houses are dishonest. They are not. But when you bid as much as I do, you notice tendencies with certain firms from when you leave a bid on the book versus bidding live. One unnamed auction house will even say, I just need one more bid to clear the book. That is not a good way to do business. And while I continue to do business with this auction house, I don't think it's necessarily fair for the people that do leave their bids on the book. I personally suggest to bid live or bid through somebody like me if you can't bid live. If you bid live, always try to bid close to the last minute if possible. This is really aggravating, but it's an effective way if there's a timed auction where that lot closes at a specific point. This is where you put your highest bid in at the last minute. Don't bid an insane amount, just bid what you think is correct and what you're willing to pay. Again, know your auction platform. Neville, which is the e-auction of NAC, has a format that people can bid until they actually win the coin. So it's like the last man standing or last woman standing. Electronic auctions can be timed where someone can come in at the last second and outbid you. Live auctions are always by the highest bidder, and you can keep going and going until there's one person left. Another thing to remember is understand the currency that you're bidding in or you're having me bid in and the relative exchange rate to the USD. For example, at the moment, the pound is about 140 to the US dollar. If you budget it in USD and then you get hit with a bill that's 40% higher, it's going to be a shock to your system. And I wouldn't recommend it. Always think about the currency. Also, buyer's premiums, they're getting quite high. They range from 10% on the low side to 27%. People like me, we like to talk in terms of hammers. When people start telling me, writing me emails and telling me, Shanna, I want to bid on this coin and this is my budget. I don't want to talk in terms of budget. That's your problem. That's your thing to figure out. I want to talk in terms of hammers, because when I'm bidding for customers, and sometimes I might be bidding for up to 15 customers in one auction, I can't do the math for you. I need it to be simple. And so I deal in terms of hammers. And I think for most people, if you're doing the auction yourself, of course you can do it however you like. But I think that if you're working with somebody, please remember to talk in terms of hammers. And also, lastly, if you have any concerns that the grade of a coin is wrong, or you worry about the edges or things that are difficult to discern, there's no shame in calling or emailing an auction house. It's completely acceptable, and I think they welcome it. I am very often nowadays, because of the pandemic, reaching out to auction houses and asking them to send me an iPhone photo in natural light or a video. Now a lot of the auction houses are doing videos anyway of some of their special coins. This is all completely fine. Remember that high quality in a common coin can often result in stronger than usual hammers. And a lot of people newer to the auction world, they don't really understand that, and it kind of is always a question mark. So don't believe that all Alexander the Great or Athenian tetradrachms should be priced similarly just because of what they are. It doesn't quite work like that. I can't tell you how often a new bidder to the market will wonder aloud to me, why is this coin 5,000 while this coin is 500? They look the same. Well, quality, just like with anything else, quality can sometimes mean thousands of dollars in actualized hammer prices. Another thing, read the grade, but use your eyes and don't get hung up on puffery or overblown and embellished grades. It's good to just use your own eyes. Your eyes can tell you a lot. When using Coin Archives Pro or AC Search, remember that there are always outliers for pricing. The best example I can give is the auction Prospero, which took place around 2012, if I remember correctly. At that point in time, there were two very deep pocket bidders who just bid each other up to crazy levels until the other dropped out. They created a fantastically false market perspective on realistic pricing that held on for years. And this was a domino effect. It caused many auction houses to estimate far more strongly than they really should have. And it was bad for, in my opinion, it was bad for both collectors, dealers, and auction houses. A lot of people lost money because of this. So you need to remember when you're doing your research that if you see something that looks a little bit high compared to what else you're seeing, it's probably an outlier and should be ignored. The last thing is that the stock market has very little correlation to the coin market. Of course, there are some, collectors that collect really at the high end where, you can make some kind of comparisons, but the coin market in general, whether or not the current market conditions are bullish or weak, doesn't matter. Collectors are collectors. Some more advice. Start with, try to work with established firms, but smaller electronic sales if you're doing this yourself. There's going to be less competition, and also try to work in the currency that you're comfortable with, whether that be USD or if you're in Europe, European auctions, to try to avoid the foreign bank transfers. And this is if you're doing it yourself. Start small and buy lower end purchases. You can work up to the bigger ones once you're more comfortable. And if all else fails, give people like me a call. We exist to make the auctions more palatable to you. You don't have to worry about late nights or early mornings. My fees are very, sometimes free or sometimes just small. It's one-stop shopping. I bill you in USD. I handle all the foreign transactions, the shipping, and the importation. And finally, if you do have a problem, I'm going to help you if it's a return or something like that. Some just small observations during COVID. The auction market has been particularly strong. Prices have been on the rise lately, so much so that when I'm even buying privately for myself, I'm kind of not, I'm a little dissuaded from bidding in the auctions. It's a little too much for a dealer who needs to resell it afterwards. I also have seen sales on my own website, and I also sell on Vcoins. Private sales have increased dramatically. I think a lot of people are unsuccessful in the auction market, and now they're turning to some of the dealers to see if they can find those same coins. There have also been just really unreasonable hammer prices that have been realized. So I'm not sure what's going to happen after COVID, but right now it definitely is a very strange time in the auction business. Finally, I just want to touch on cultural property restrictions and what they actually mean. Museums have been paying attention to cultural property preservation since the 1970s, but the move to include ancient coins wasn't added until after the early 2000s. This became a very heated and sometimes nasty debate. If you thought that the last presidential election was bad, then you clearly have not seen archaeologists and dealers go at it. Our State Department became more involved in setting up what are called MOUs with other countries, typically under the guise of something more important, like supporting international cooperation for other initiatives, like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. There's a serious debate on how effective these MOUs are, and frankly, this could take an entire presentation. I'm not going to waste your time. I did my master's thesis at the University of Chicago in 2013, and on this actual topic. And if anyone wants to be really bored, they can contact me and I can send it to them for their reading pleasure. The point of bringing all this up is just to make you aware that they exist, and it's something you should be aware of. You should make sure the auction houses that you deal with are going to be prepared to do the necessary paperwork so that you can import coins legally into this country. And if they don't, then you need to be conscious of coins or material that are just under any circumstances allowed into the US. For example, there are certain countries where we have emergency restrictions like Crimea or areas, Crimea or Iraq, where we just simply can't bring anything in, coins or anything. This is not going to affect the majority of buyers, but also you can't ignore them. When the MOUs first started to be put into place, a lot of coin dealers, myself included, really feared that it was the end of collecting as we know it. The truth is, collecting is not ending at all by any sense of the word. What's ending is probably something that most of us are going to be very much shielded from, which is the practice of middlemen that are coming and selling large groups of coins to dealers without having to provide any paperwork on where they came from. So those things are happening less, of course. But from our perspective, little is happening because the proper paperwork is being filled out by the auction houses that I buy from, at least. And this is a reason why I don't think that cultural property restrictions are anything to be feared. It's just something that you should be aware of. So if you have any questions about anything that I said, you want to know further information, you can reach out to me at my email. There's my phone number and my website's there as well. I really appreciate everyone being here, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about the auction market. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. You can go ahead and stop your screen share. And we are right about 2 o'clock, so I'm going to just pull out a couple questions from the Q&A before we sign off for today. Okay, so Shanna, there should be a red button at the top of your screen to stop the screen share.
Okay.
Go ahead. There we go. All righty. Let's see. Here we go. Do you handle auctions for coins that sell for under $500?
Yes, I do. I I do that probably more, I would say, with collectors that are also buying above that level as well. So I will do favors. But as you imagine, when you're talking about $500, to me, it's not a, it's usually, and I don't want to be mean to anybody. I try to help everybody that wants help, but at the end of the day, you know, my time is worth something. And if I'm doing importation and doing all this work and then charging you only 5%, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I will try to help people as favors, but I'm not going to do it too often.
Let's see, can you explain what you mean by leaving bids on the book?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so leaving bids on the book means that you are sending your bid in before the auction takes place. So you are either doing it through 6bid or numerous bids, where you're actually leaving your bid with the auction house. This is not the same thing as a proxy bid through something like Heritage. Heritage is a totally different beast. You could leave your proxy bid with Heritage before the auction and feel very secure that once that coin comes up, that's the first time that they're going to see that you're bidding on that coin. But any other place, if you leave a bid on the book with either a third party like 6bid, you will be, your bid will be known to the auction house beforehand. And that means that you are at major risk of losing that coin.
Alrighty, and I'm just going to do one more and then we're going to wrap it up. Heritage handles only encapsulated coins, not something the collectors of ancient coins generally approve of. Are there others that only handle slabbed pieces?
Stax Bowers is like that as well, I think, but you know, there's always a mixture. And even I have to say also that Heritage, they do something called a photo cert. So they don't always necessarily sell something that's encapsulated. They may have a high value coin that they've taken a picture of and it's NGC graded, but without actually being encapsulated.
All right. Then I think that is going to wrap us up. Thank you, Shanna. That was very informative.
Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone who watched. If you want to hop over to our next session, we have John Kraljevich presenting on some metals. So that one should have already started a couple minutes ago, so feel free to hop over there. And I look forward to seeing some of you all throughout the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.